What's up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my final thoughts for Week 2 of the NFL. Going to be talking some DFS, going through my full player pool, and talking some strategy along the way. Before we get into it all, if you guys can leave a like on the video, that is much appreciated as always, and subscribe to the channel if you are not already so you not miss out on all the other content throughout the week. I'm also live on 2 other channels throughout the week, KUPP Sports Radio. I'm live Wednesdays and Fridays with Billy, and then on Football Diehards, I am live Wednesdays and Sundays with Jamie. So lots going on for me. I'm really looking forward to getting back into it Week 2 here, and I say we start with quarterback. So quarterback for me, last week it was between Hurts and Murray for cash. This week it's between Dak Prescott and another guy I'll mention in a bit. But yeah, I'm very high on this Dallas game in general. It is a 55-point game total, which is the highest on the slate. And, Dallas is 3.5-point underdogs, which I do like in this game. And yeah, Dak just seems way too cheap here. 6,800 at 31.4 DraftKings points last week. You have great stacking options. Cooper, Lamb, and Wilson, all 3 guys that I really do like this week. And he threw the ball a massive 58 times. 58 times last week, and last year he actually threw the ball 50.5 times on average in the games that he was healthy. So expect a ton of volume from Dak, expect a good matchup from Dak, and expect a game that's going to blow out. Highest total on the slate, like I mentioned, and they are projected to be trailing, which should mean to more passing. So, yeah, I do like Dak Prescott quite a bit. It's between him and one other guy between cash games, but I'm going to have a ton of Dak in tournaments as well. I think there's a ton of upside. But, yeah, the other guy that I'm debating, it's between him or Dak, is going to be Justin Herbert. It's going to be on the other side of the ball here. We have the Chargers quarterback going against Dallas, 55-point game total, like I mentioned. Chargers are going to be 3.5-point favorites. And yeah, Herbert is 6,700. He did have 18.4 DraftKings points last week, and it's just a really great matchup. I mean, if we're talking matchups, Herbert's going to have the better matchup between him and Dak. Dallas defense, especially the passing defense, is just not great, to say the least. Great stacking options in Herbert. He has Allen, Eckler, and then Cook, mostly on the Keenan Allen side. We'll talk about him more, but yeah, really do like Herbert. I really do like Dak. It's between them. It's very close in terms of cash. I just think they're both way too cheap in a game that's projected to absolutely shoot out. Dak Prescott, 6,800. Justin Herbert, 6,700. I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. Again, great stacking options, great run back options. This is a game that I'm going to be extremely, extremely high on. All right, moving on, we have Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray is going to be in play, pretty much every week. The only concern I have is the price tag. I much rather would go down and get a Dak Prescott, get a Justin Herbert for a pretty big savings there, but it's hard to ignore that Kyler Murray is a phenomenal play this week. Going against Minnesota here, it's a 50.5-point game total, a little bit less than the Dallas game. Cardinals are 4-point favorites. He did have 34.6 DraftKings points last week, which was awesome. I was very high on him last week, and I love the matchup here. I love the rushing yard upside that Murray brings. I will say last week he only had 5 rushing attempts, only 20 yards and a touchdown. I do expect that to go up this week and moving forward, but yeah, with Murray, he's a safe play. You get that cash rushing yard upside floor that I do like, but just this week for me, I'm kind of leaning more towards saving and going with the Dak Prescott, going with the Herbert, and then there's another guy I'll talk about, and Tom Brady, that I really do like as well. So yeah, like I said, in this high 6K range, there are so many plays that stick out. Prescott, Herbert, and now Tom Brady going against Atlanta. You got a 52-point game total, another high total here, where Tampa Bay is going to be 12-point favorites. So he did have 32.2 DraftKings points last week against Dallas, and obviously that was a great matchup. This is another great matchup against Atlanta, who just looked horrible last week, not only defensively, but just in general, offensively as well. And like I said, it's a great matchup here, great stacking options. Browns, Evans, and Godwin are 3 wide receivers that I have interest in. All 3 of them are very cheap and easy to get into your lineup. Great stackable options there. So yeah, I like Tom Brady here. Very high team total, one of the highest team totals on the whole entire slate, if not the highest, and should have multiple touchdown upside here. I guess my only concern is if they do get out ahead early, are they going to run the ball, in the second half? Potentially, but they're going to need to score touchdowns to get there, and I do think Tom Brady has a very good day. So quarterbacks, I'm mostly looking at Prescott, I'm looking at Herbert. I'm looking at Brady. I'm looking at that high 6K range in general. If I'm going up top, I'm going to be getting Kyler Murray. I guess another guy that stuck out is going to be Joe Burrow going against Chicago. He is 5,800. I think he's way too cheap here. Had a solid game last week. I think his stacking options are way too cheap as well. So Burrow would be the other guy that has my interest. Josh Allen, I think, is in a solid spot as well. He had a tough matchup last week against Pittsburgh. Still, not the easiest matchup this week against Miami, but I think it's a good spot for him to bounce back. But yeah, those are the guys that I'm looking at for quarterback. I say we move along to running back here. So my favorite running back on the entire slate this week is going to be Nick Chubb. And I'm not typically a Chubb guy, but I think this is a phenomenal spot for him. Going against Houston here, it is a 47.5 point total, where the Browns are actually 12.5 point favorite. I think I saw like 13 on a book as well. So they are the biggest favorites on the entire slate. And, Chubb is 7,800, so you're getting a massive savings, a $2,100 savings, I believe, off of Christian McCaffrey. You're getting a $1,000 savings off of Alvin Kamara. And he doesn't have that same, pass catching upside of those guys, but he has an elite matchup here against a very poor Texans defense, 20-plus touch upside. I expect the Browns to run the ball and run the ball a ton. I don't expect them to come out here with a game plan of they're going to pass the ball a lot. I think they're just going to run the ball a lot here. So I think, Chubb's going to get a lot of opportunities. Of course, Hunt is there, but, Chubb has been getting the job done nonetheless. He had 23.1 DraftKings points last week against the Chiefs. And again, I think it's a positive game script. The Browns are at home. They're going to be up. They're going to be running the ball. I think Chubb's in a great spot to score multiple touchdowns even and have a very good day. But again, the only thing I don't like about Chubb is going to be the lack of pass catching upside. But I think he'll be fine here, especially at that price tag. So, yep, Christian McCaffrey, we'll talk about him every single week, no matter who he plays. We're going to be talking about Christian McCaffrey because we kind of have to. So they did price him up, I think, like $400 from last week. Going against the Saints here, 45-point game total, where Carolina is 3.5-point underdogs. And he did have 27.7 DraftKings points last week, which I believe was the second most all last week. Tough matchup. It is a tough matchup, but he is matchup proof. It doesn't matter who he's playing. He's always going to be in play. He had 30 touches last week, and he always has that 30-plus touch upside. Elite pass catching ability. Had 9 receptions last week on 9 targets. I expect about the same thing here in a game that they're projected to be trailing. Maybe even more receptions. Like, this guy has the best ceiling on the entire slate. It's not really debatable. He has so much pass catching upside, so much upside in general, and it was just weird last week. Like, it seemed like McCaffrey didn't do much last week, and then you take a look at what he did, and he scored 27.7 DraftKings points, and I consider that like a floor game for McCaffrey. He didn't really score. He didn't hit 100 yards in terms of rushing or receiving. He got close on both, but I think it was more of a floor game for McCaffrey. So it just shows you how good this guy is in terms of, in general, and then DFS as well. This guy is an absolute cheat code. So there are a lot of running backs I do like down low, and we'll talk about a lot of them. But if you have the salary to go up and get McCaffrey, yeah, get him, absolutely. He's definitely in play. He's always in play week in and week out. He has the ability to definitely break the slate. I'm curious to see what his ownership is. I'll be talking ownership on Sunday with Jamie, but if McCaffrey's low owned, I'm going to make it an emphasis to definitely get him into my lineup because, he's McCaffrey. He's McCaffrey, and he does what he wants. So we'll move on to the next guy here, Alvin Kamara, a guy that I do expect to be pretty popular here, as he should be. Let me fix this real quick. There we go. Yeah, Alvin Kamara, he is 8,800. So you're getting a $1,100 savings off of McCaffrey there. And Kamara did have 18.1 DraftKings points last week. He has 20-plus touch upside and reception upside here. He had 4 targets for 3 receptions last week. I expected that to be a little bit higher. Maybe it is this week against Carolina. But like I said, you get a nice price savings off of guys up top like McCaffrey, guys like Cook, guys like that. So I think Kamara is definitely in play. Another guy that pretty much matchup proof. Pass catching upside. I do like him a lot this week. Moving on, we have Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is an interesting play here. So he definitely disappointed last week, only scoring 11.7 DraftKings points. He has 7,300 in a game that, again, the highest total on the slate, 55-point game total, and the Chargers are 3.5-point favorites. So what was weird last week was he had 0 targets and obviously 0 receptions, which was very weird because when you think of Eckler, you think of a guy that's going to go out there and he's going to catch passes. But He did not do that. But last week, it was a very tough matchup. It's like a completely different this week. Like, he played Washington last week. Obviously, a very tough matchup there. But now he's going against Dallas. So I do think that... Wait a second. Yeah. So I do think that Eckler is going to be able to bounce back here for sure. I like Eckler. And yeah, just the pass catching ability for Eckler, high point total game. I think all the ownership's going to be going on the Charger side in terms of the pass catchers. Keenan Allen, Herbert, guys like that. Cook even, maybe Mike Williams gets some ownership as well. I think people are going to forget about Eckler. They're going to look at the game log and see, oh, this guy did terrible, 11.7 DraftKings points, but I think it's a great spot for him to do, maybe score a touchdown or two and hopefully catch some passes. That was very weird last week, but I do like Austin Eckler. He did stick out to me. All right, going down, this is going to be one of the highest owned players on the entire slate, and for a very good reason. He's just way too cheap, $6,300 for Najee Harris, 47-point game total, where Pittsburgh is 5.5-point favorites, which is a positive game script, which means they should be out running the ball. So we did have 5.9 DraftKings points last week, which obviously is not great, but he was the only Steelers running back to get a touch, and I believe he's the only Steelers running back to get a snap last week as well. You got a solid matchup against the Raiders, and I think that poor game, I thought that poor game would lower the ownership a little bit, but taking a look at the ownership projections, it looks like Harris will be the highest owned. So yeah, I like Harris. I like him in cash. I think he has some solid upside, and he's way, way, way too cheap at $6,300. Just way too cheap there. And then the other guy I do want to talk about is going to be Chase Edmonds. So there's another guy that is, I think, the exact same price that I'll mention real quick as well. But yeah, Chase Edmonds is somebody that also stuck out. You have a 15.5-point game total, high-scoring game. The Cardinals are 4-point favorites. Very cheap here, $4,900. He did have 14.6 DraftKings points last week. Just a cheap option here against a Minnesota defense that was absolutely lit up by Joe Mixon. Pass-catching upside, he had 4 targets last week and 16 total touches, so I do like that. For his price, I like the game script. I like the game in general. I think Chase Edmonds is definitely somebody to keep your eye on. But yeah, going down, Kenyon Drake is somebody to look out for. So he's the exact same price, $4,900. Josh Jacobs has been ruled out. Not 100% sure why, but that makes Kenyon Drake obviously the number one guy. And, he did pretty decent last week. I think he's going to be in a good spot here. Tough matchup, though. That's the only thing I don't like. It's a tough matchup against Pittsburgh. I don't like that, but he does have pass-catching upside, and he's very cheap. So Kenyon Drake is somebody that I'm looking at this week. Josh Jacobs is out. I'm curious to see where his ownership does lie. Other than that, like Zeke Elliott, 6,200 is interesting. Like this low 6K range of running backs is interesting. Zeke Elliott, 6,200. I think all the ownership is going to be gravitated towards Cooper, Lamb, Cedric Wilson, guys like that, Dak Prescott, that I think people are going to forget about Zeke this week. And it just seems way too cheap for Zeke in a game that is a 55-point game total, a game that should score a lot of touchdowns. I think Zeke's somebody to keep your eye on. Chris Carson, 6,100 going against Tennessee, another guy that stuck out, and Montgomery as well. I believe he's 6,100 also. Just this low 6K range is somebody or is somewhere I'm going to have a lot of ownership on. I do like Harris down there the most, probably Zeke second most. I like Carson and Montgomery probably third and fourth most there as well. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on that range. I think it's pretty solid there. So let's move on to the wide receivers here. So what I typically like to do in DFS, especially NFL, is whenever a guy is supposed to, absolutely go off, and there's a couple of them, and they have poor games, I like to, jump right back on them because I think the ownership is going to be lowered here for a guy like Calvin Ridley, who a lot of people were high on last week, including me, and he did not perform well. Neither did the entire Atlanta team. Like, Atlanta looked horrible last week. I think they do bounce back a little bit. I'm not going to say they're going to win here against the Buccaneers. They're definitely not. But I do think they'll look better than last week because you cannot look any worse than they did. But Calvin Ridley, it is a 52-point game total. I love the game script here for Ridley. 12-point underdogs against the Buccaneers. So they're going to be trailing. They're going to be passing. I think he's going to be very low owned as well. And I think, he's going to bounce back. He had 10.1 DraftKings points last week. He looked really good on the first drive. I think he got like about half of that just on the first drive alone. Kind of didn't do anything after that, but I think it's a good bounce back spot for Ridley and somebody I'm going to have my eye on. I like the matchup against the Tampa Bay secondary, who got absolutely destroyed by Dallas. So I do like Calvin Ridley there in terms of a bounce back spot. Keenan Allen is probably my favorite wide receiver play on the slate. A 55-point game total, like I mentioned, highest total on the slate. I like Keenan Allen here quite a bit. I like pairing him up with Herbert. I like him as a run-back option. I love this game, and I love Allen against this horrible passing defense of the Dallas Cowboys. I think they're going to have a lot of success, and I think he's way too cheap at $7K. The price just makes absolutely no sense to me, and you can always count on Keenan Allen for two things: targets and receptions. He's always going to get those, and that's what I like about Keenan Allen. I think he's very cash viable. He will be in my cash lineup, and I think tournaments as well, he's somebody to definitely consider. You have Mike Williams on there as well. Just a little bit too expensive for me. I think he's like $6,100. I'd much rather go up and get Keenan Allen there. And then we'll talk about another guy on the Chargers offense that I do like. But yeah, Keenan Allen is in a smash spot this week against Dallas, and I like it quite a bit. Somebody I'll touch on quick. Stephon Diggs is up there going against Miami. He had 14 targets last week, 9 receptions. It's a tough matchup, but Diggs has got one of those guys that is matchup proof. I think Diggs is somebody to look at up in that top range around the Ridley area there. Jamar Chase. So somebody I talked about on the Sunday show with Jamie, I said, yeah, I'm gonna have some Jamar Chase this week, and I didn't feel great about it at the time, but when he caught that touchdown, I started feeling very good about it. And he had a terrible preseason. A lot of people were off of him, so I played Jamar Chase. He was like sub 5% ownership. He won't be sub 5% ownership this week, but I will be going back to him because he's way too cheap this week once again. So Jamar Chase going against the Chicago defense. Chicago's defense did not look great the other night. It's a 44.5-point game total. I love Higgins here as well. Higgins is another guy that's very underpriced, but Chase is even lower priced at $5K. He had 7 targets last week and performed extremely well for his first NFL regular season game. Definitely proved a lot of people wrong after a horrible preseason and went out there with a bang. Scoring 23.9 DraftKings points. So I'm going right back to Chase. I like him. I like the matchup. Like I said, I like Higgins as well. Boyd is fine also. But yeah, give me Chase at $5K. Just way too cheap. I don't get the price point. I'll definitely be having some Joe Burrow stacks with Chase, with Higgins, guys like that, as they are all way too cheap. And I do like the matchup as well. So give me Jamar Chase. I think he's going to have a monster season. Antonio Brown, and we can kind of pair all these guys together. Brown, Godwin, and Evans, I think, are all in play this week against Atlanta. 52-point game total where they're going to be 12-point favorites. And Brown did have 26.7 DraftKings points last week. And like I said, I'm interested in all of them. I think Godwin is like 6,600. Mike Evans is 6,100. I like every single one of them. I'm going to have multiple stacks with all three of them. I like Tom Brady as well, so I'm going to be very high on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in general. Great run back option with Calvin Ridley, and another guy we'll talk about in Kyle Pitts. I think is a good bounce back spot for him as well. But yeah, it seems way too cheap here for not only Brown but all the Buccaneers wide receivers in general. $6K for Brown just does not make much sense to me. He had 7 targets last week, 121 yards. Only concern is there are 12-point favorites, so I could see them getting up and running the ball, but they're going to have to score touchdowns to get there, and I think Antonio Brown's definitely a candidate to get in the end zone this week. So yeah, high on Brown, high on all 3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers, and high on that game in general. And then kind of the same thing here for this one. CeeDee Lamb, I like all 3 of the Dallas wide receivers here as well. CeeDee Lamb, it is a 55-point game total, highest on the slate in a game they're going to be trailing. He had a massive 15 targets last week, 7 receptions. He should have even had a bigger game than 26.4 DraftKings points. There were a couple times where he dropped the ball or Dak missed him, but like I said, Dak threw the ball 58 times last week, and I think that continues this week as well. The volume upside for Lamb is just going to be insane, and he's 6,400. Like, this price point makes 0 sense to me. I think these Dallas wide receivers should be priced up a lot more. You have Amari Cooper, who I believe is 6,800 around there. I think he should be priced up a lot more as well. So I'm high on Lamb, I'm high on Cooper, and another guy that I am high on is going to be Cedric Wilson. So Michael Gallup is going to be out, which should increase the role of Wilson at a very cheap price. He is 3,100. Again, Dallas throws the ball a ton, so I think the volume is going to be there. They're trailing, so I think there's going to be a lot of passing. I really do like Cedric Wilson at this price tag of 3,100. He will be in my DAX stacks. I think is a great run back option as well for the Herbert stacks. And yeah, I'm very high on this game in general, as you can tell. And then Cooper Kupp, 6K. Yeah, so the Rams looked really good last week. He has 6K, had 26.8 DraftKings points last week. And yeah, Kupp had a massive game. 10 targets, 7 receptions. I also think Robert Woods is somebody that's very cheap as well that's in play. But yeah, I think KUPP's definitely in play at that price tag. The price tag really does not make much sense to me at all, to be honest. And then going down, just taking a look at some other guys that stick out. Allen Robinson sticks out, 6,200 going against the Bengals. The price point is just way too cheap there. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. I'm going to be attacking the Buccaneers wide receivers. I'm going to be attacking the Dallas wide receivers. I'm going to be attacking Keenan Allen. And that's pretty much where all my ownership is going to be this week. Maybe mix in some KUPP there, but mix in some of those Bengals wide receivers. But yeah, I think all of those guys are in some very good spots in very good game environments. All right, so we will move along. Tight ends. So we know who's going to be the highest owned tight end, and that is going to be Darren Waller. Everybody saw him get 19 targets. I think Darren Waller's fine. For me, though, I'm kind of liking George Kittle. If I was to pay up 6,400, you're getting a little bit of savings off of Darren Waller. Is an elite tight end option against an Eagles defense that is not great against the tight end. So Kittle is going to be my preferred pay-up option. If I can go up and get Waller, I'll be happy to do so. Again, Waller, 19 targets, crazy game. But yeah, I think George Kittle is a little bit underpriced, getting a little bit disrespected here. Did not have the best game last week, but I do expect him to definitely bounce back this week. So I do like Kittle here. Other tight end, Kyle Pitts, somebody that disappointed a lot of people last week. I'm going right back to him. Not going to go crazy on it, but he has 5,200. Good game script in a game where they're projected to be trailing. 12-point underdogs are the Falcons. I think they're going to be throwing a lot. They're going to have to throw a lot. And Pitts did have 8 targets last week. So the targets were there, but the productivity was not there. He did not do all that well. In general, the Falcons did not do all that well, but I think it's a solid bounce back spot. I think people are going to be off of him. He was the highest owned tight end last week. It's not going to be the same this week, and I think it's a good opportunity for him to bounce back. And then another guy I do like is going to be Noah Fant. This is probably where I'm going to be going, in cash games. He has 4,200 going against Jacksonville. 45-point game total. The Broncos are 6-point favorites, so Jerry Jeudy is out, which should lead to a greater target share for Fant. He had 8 targets last week and has a phenomenal matchup this week against the Jaguars, who, I thought the Texans were going to be the worst team this year, but it looks like the Jaguars are going to be the worst team this year. So I think it's a good spot for Fant. I do think he gets it done at a very cheap price tag. And then other than that, I guess what stuck out to me in terms of tight end would be, there's 2 of them that kind of stuck out. Tyler Higbee. 4,100 for the Rams stuck out to me. Like I said, the Rams looked really good. And then Jared Cook for the Chargers, 3,900 going against Dallas. Another opportunity to get exposure to that game and don't really have to pay a big price tag for it. So Cook, Higbee, Pitts, Fant, Kittle. If you can go up and you can get Waller, I think that's fine as well. But those are the guys I'm looking at for this week. And then we'll quickly touch on defense. This is a tough week for defense. If I'm going to pay up, obviously there's great options up in that 4K range, but typically don't do that. Typically, I am punting down a defense. I like the Browns, 3,500 against Houston. I think the Eagles are cheap, 2,400 against the 49ers. The Dolphins defense against Buffalo, 2,500. Those are the ones I'm looking at in terms of value. There really isn't much. It's very ugly down here in this range, so I'm just going to probably punt with one of those, the Eagles or the Dolphins. If I'm going up, the Browns defense, and of course there's some good ones in the 4K range as well, if I do have the salary. But again, I'm mostly paying down. So yeah, guys, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys can leave a like on your way out, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Just went through my full player pool, talked a little bit of strategy along the way. Yeah, it should be a fun week. If you guys want to check out the live stream on Sunday with me and Jamie of Football Diehards going live at 10 o'clock a.m. If you have not yet, check out all the live streams I've did with Billy on Wednesday and Friday on Pub Sports Radio. We talked about some stacks and stuff. Lots of good stuff on there. So yeah, guys, that's about it. Thank you for watching. Good luck for week 2 of the NFL. Let's make some money, guys.